9 young hikers walked into the frozen Ural Mountains. What search teams found days later didn't look real. 2 bodies barefoot in the snow, 1 hiker missing a tongue, several with ribs crushed inward, like they'd been hit by a car, and their tent slashed open from the inside. No distress call, no goodbye, no warning. And in just a moment, you'll see why investigators realized this was not a normal hiking tragedy. Because what happened on this mountain still doesn't fit logic. In this video, you're about to witness the full Dyatlov Pass story. What happened, what was discovered, what was buried in reports. And stay until the end, because one overlooked detail changes how you see this entire case. January 1959. Deep inside the Soviet Union. No phones, no GPS, no satellite tracking, only snow, winds screaming across exposed ridges, and darkness that arrives early and stays long. 9 highly trained hikers prepare for an advanced winter expedition. Their leader, 23-year-old engineering student, Igor Dyatlov. This wasn't recreational hiking. This was a certification-level survival expedition, the highest rating available at the time. They trained for this, prepared for this, expected suffering, but not death. Yet every single one of them would die. Originally, there were 10 hikers. One member, Yuri Yudin, developed severe joint pain and weakness early into the trip. On January 28th, he made a decision that haunted him for the rest of his life. He turned back. The other 9 continued forward. And this matters, because that was the last confirmed moment any human ever saw them alive. Their route crossed the northern Ural Mountains, known for unpredictable storms, sudden temperature collapses, and violent wind systems. One peak had a local name, Kholat Syakhl, which translates to Mountain of the Dead, and what followed made that name feel disturbingly prophetic. By February 12th, the hikers were scheduled to report their return. Nothing arrived. At first, families assumed weather delays, but days passed, then more days, then panic. Search teams were finally deployed. Students, volunteers, then Soviet military units. And when they reached the area, everything changed. February 26th, searchers spotted the tent, frozen into the slope, half buried, lonely. But here's the first shock. The tent wasn't opened. It wasn't unzipped. It was slashed. From the inside, knife cuts ripped through the fabric, meaning whatever happened didn't give them time to exit normally. Now pause here, because what they found inside made this even more disturbing. Boots, heavy jackets, food, cameras, money, passports, still inside, which means they left in a rush. Some barefoot, some wearing only socks, in temperatures below -30 degrees Celsius. Now here's the part investigators still struggle with. Footprints led away from the tent, downhill, toward the forest. And they weren't chaotic. They were calm, orderly, human. 9 people walking into lethal cold. And what waited in the forest still raises questions. Under a tall pine tree, searchers found 2 bodies. Yuri Doroshenko, Yuri Krivonischenko, barefoot, wearing only underwear. Their hands were burned. Tree branches above them were snapped, as if someone had climbed upward in panic. Between them, the remains of a small fire. They froze to death. But here's the part that doesn't add up. Why would experienced hikers abandon shelter, remove clothing, and try to survive beside a tree? This behavior is now known as paradoxical undressing, something that happens in extreme hypothermia. But that alone doesn't explain what came next. Between the tree and the tent, 3 more bodies were discovered: Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kalmogorova, Rustam Slobodin. They were positioned as if crawling uphill, back toward safety, back toward the tent. All 3 died from hypothermia, but Rustam had something else: a skull fracture, not fatal, no blood, no visible wounds, which created a new problem. What causes internal trauma without leaving external damage? And then spring arrived, and the final discovery changed everything. As snow melted, 4 more hikers were found, deep inside a ravine, buried beneath meters of compacted snow. And what investigators saw stunned them. Ludmila Dubinina's ribs were crushed inward. Her tongue was missing. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol's skull was shattered. Semyon Zolotaryov had massive chest trauma. Doctors compared the force to a high-speed car crash. But there was no vehicle, no avalanche debris nearby, no broken trees, no cliff fall, no fight scene. And then something even stranger appeared. Some clothing items were radioactive, not trace contamination, detectable radiation, in a remote mountain range. Now think about this. 9 hikers flee their tent. Some freeze. Some suffer crushing internal injuries. Radiation appears. No witnesses. No clear cause. So what did the Soviet government say? Their official conclusion: the hikers died due to a compelling natural force. No explanation. No details. Case closed. And that single vague sentence is why this case exploded into global mystery status. So what actually happened? Let's examine the theories. And pay attention, because every explanation fixes one problem and creates another. First, avalanche. In 2020, Russian authorities reopened the case and supported this theory. Computer modeling showed that under rare conditions, a delayed slab avalanche could occur. But problems remain. No visible avalanche debris. Tent mostly intact. Footprints preserved weeks later. And one massive question: why flee without boots? Next, katabatic winds. Powerful downhill air blasts capable of producing roaring sounds. They can cause panic, disorientation, fear. But wind doesn't crush ribs. It doesn't fracture skulls. Then military testing. During this era, the Soviet Union conducted classified weapons experiments. Some believe parachute mines exploded nearby. Pressure waves could explain internal injuries. Radiation could explain contamination. Other hikers reported glowing orange lights in the sky that same week. But no official military files were released, which only deepened suspicion. Another theory: infrasound. Low-frequency vibrations created by mountain wind patterns. These can trigger intense fear and hallucinations. It might explain why they fled, but it doesn't explain crushed bones. Then come the extreme theories. Animal attacks. No evidence. Local tribe attack. No signs of violence. And finally, non-human explanations. UFOs. Unknown creatures. No proof. But the mystery remains unsolved. Now, quick question for you. Pause for a second. Which explanation sounds most believable to you? Avalanche, military testing, or something else? Drop it in the comments. I read them. One person never stopped searching. Yuri Yudin, the only survivor. He publicly said the official explanation never made sense. He kept his friends' belongings, visited memorials, spoke to researchers, and searched for answers until his death in 2013. And here's what still matters. Those hikers were terrified. They didn't calmly exit. They didn't prepare. They reacted to something sudden, overwhelming, something that made trained people choose freezing death over shelter. Maybe it was nature, maybe secret technology, maybe a chain of rare events, or maybe the truth is still buried beneath the snow. Because Dyatlov Pass isn't just a mystery. It's a warning that sometimes even preparation isn't enough. And if this story disturbed you, the next one will disturb you even more. Subscribe